Hello, hello. What's up, AO? How you doing? Hope you're getting ready for a good Thanksgiving this week if you're in the United States. And if you're not, I hope you're just giving thanks just because it's a good thing to do, to give thanks. So let's get into some of these questions. All right. Quade Sturdy asks, how do you approach the psychology of raises? Background, I am the leader of Sturdy Contracting Company, the most detail-oriented construction company on the planet. I'm curious how people structure employee raises. I would like to give my team a clear outline for each position and show what steps they can take to get a raise. I am unsure if this would be done by attaching percent raises for time with the company, dollar raises for each additional responsibility taken on, or a combination of both. I want to treat my team super well. However, I don't want it to be a double-edged sword where they feel capped for growth. I also thought about an incentive bonus for my original crew. My concept is this. If someone stays with the crew while we reach milestones like 250,000, 500,000, 1 million, etc., they can obtain a small percent raise each time as well. I need to make this system so they have room to grow while making it structured enough that it cannot be abused. So one thing I will say is when you're looking at raises, I love that you're thinking about this. And when I'm going back to the beginning when we first started growing, I think I was probably too generous with how I thought of if the company's growing, I can give all of my employees raises. And while that is absolutely true, when you grow to 1 million, for example, you're going to need to hire people to support that million, especially if you're a service business. So if you've got, 3 people when you're at 250,000 in revenue and you're paying them $60,000 each, getting to 1 million in revenue doesn't mean that you suddenly can pay them $250,000 each because it's 4 times revenue, because you're probably going to have to quadruple your team, especially if you're growing fast. So just be cautious with that of just that piece at the end of that. I love, the reward for a milestone, but don't think that you're going to be able to give them equivalent percentage raises that your revenue grows, because you're going to have other infrastructure costs that go into that. As far as how to go about giving them a raise or putting targets on that, what I want to look at when I'm looking at whether I want to give raises for tangible items, what I want to look at is what is the benefit that they're bringing to the company in terms of how they're what's up, Sean? Good to see you, and thank you for the sound and lighting. Good. I got my new background in the back, which is great. So what I like to see is we need to say, what are they going to do that's going to produce that outcome for the target compensation they want to be at? So I don't think you necessarily want to have a blanket policy. I think it's more about the conversations you have with your team members and finding out where they want to go. One of my mentors, Ed Milet, says this so well, and he says that your dream needs to be big enough that the dreams of all your team members can fit inside of your dream. Now, so that means you need to find out what their dreams are. Some people are content to make 40 grand a year forever, and they just want to not have stress. They want to come in, do their job, and go home and go watch Wheel of Fortune. And if that's your team member, great, and that's what they want, that's awesome. If they want to go make $250,000 a year, well, you're going to need to reverse engineer. They can do that, but they've got to provide some significant value to your company. And so for example, we have team members that do certain jobs in my business that produce certain revenue. So like bookkeeping commands a certain rate, tax work commands a certain rate, CFO work commands a certain rate. They're different rates depending on the service you need, and those services require a different skill set. So if I'm a bookkeeper and I want to go make the money of a CFO in the company, I can go pick up those skills to get my salary from point A to point B. Or if I want to stay a bookkeeper, I can get more efficient so that I can work on more clients, which will generate more revenue for the company. So you want to look at in terms of the skill sets that they're being developed in, and you can develop those skill sets, but they've got to be able to contribute a certain amount of money in order for you to give them that raise. I wouldn't look at it on just because they've been here for so long. Yes, there's inflationary raises, but that's more just cost of living adjustment than it is giving them a merit increase. If you're giving them a merit increase, you want to make sure that they're leveling up their skills and you're not just doling out money. Otherwise, you're going to spend yourself broke. Okay. All right, I'm getting a little bit of saying that there's a little bit of performance issues, so I'm going to close some programs here. Okay, next question. Quade Sturdy. How do you balance honesty and giving out too much information? Background, I'm the leader of Sturdy Contracting Company, the most in-depth construction company on the planet. I'm curious where to draw the line of being honest with sub-trades, clients, suppliers, etc. I believe honesty is the best way to approach situations. However, I feel as if I complicate situations by providing unnecessary details. I think it's rooted in a desire to educate clients, but feel as though I am wasting energy. So I'm assuming it's less about the honesty as it is about whether or not to share versus overshare. And I think about back when I was just starting my career, I heard a line and it stuck with me and it was from my strategy professor in business school. And she said, all the good companies focus on adding value where the customer wants it. And I think that's true of how you do your systems, how you do your protocols, what you're adding in your service delivery. And I think it's true in your communication too. And then the other line that comes to mind is from my English background, and that was the one of the books, the definitive books on writing. Rule number 1 is omit needless words. So if you combine omit needless words with only add value where the customer or vendor or supplier wants it, then it's a mindset of, yes, you want to be honest, but maybe oversharing is just where less is more in this case. So if you start to see their eyes glaze over, it probably means there's too much. And so that's what I would say. When I first saw this question, I read it as oversharing in terms of the financials of the company with your team members, maybe, because I know a lot of business owners are hesitant to share what the company's actually making. And I would encourage you to be open and honest, and don't worry about keeping everything too close. Because in general, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but I'm going to answer this because I know a lot of you who aren't Quade are thinking this and wondering whether to share. And in general, employees think you make more than you make. And usually when they find out how much you actually make, they work harder to help you make more because they thought you were bringing in the big bucks, because they think that revenue minus their salary is what you're taking home and living. They don't know all the other expenses that are going on. It's a little different when we have accountants on the team because they understand, but like in general, most employees think it's revenue minus my salary equals your profit as the owner. So you're bringing in the bank, you're rolling in the dough, making bank. So don't be afraid to share the actual numbers. In my experience, it gets people actually rowing harder in the direction you want them to go. Jenny Dawson. What takes priority in spending wisely for growth and sales starting out as a full-time business owner? Description and background. As of 11/1, I am a full-time entrepreneur and focused on growing my yin yoga and sound healing business. With limited funds as I'm starting out, I need guidance on how best to invest in the growth of my business. Zen Soul Balance. With the holidays just around the corner, I want to capitalize on opportunities by offering unique experiences for groups and businesses in the San Diego area and beyond. My challenge is reaching a broader spectrum of people. I'm reaching out to event planners, joining organizations, and networking as much as possible, and I also feel the need to advertise. What takes priority in spending? Online social media ads? I've tried this in the past and have found it to be ineffective. What are your thoughts on this? Local newspaper or magazine for exposure, Groupon deals, sales training with a mentor? Any other suggestion? I'd love to hear. So in my experience, and I'm an accountant, not a marketer, but I've done all right in marketing and growing. And I was just on the phone with a couple of my really, really sharp marketing friends last week. We were talking about this a little bit. And what they said to me, because I was actually asking for myself, but also for my clients, if you're going for local business, Google Ads. So Facebook is great if you're going for a digital product or long distance. In your case, unless you're doing digital classes or long distance classes, which I think you're doing just in studio classes, I would really lean into local SEO and targeting, because in your situation, you're looking to bring someone in who maybe they've been thinking about a yin yoga class, and so then they're Googling yin yoga. And so you can target local, and then they're looking for yin yoga in my town in San Diego. And so I'd look at some of those search words and put yourself, and how you use Google ads effectively is a little different than Facebook and social media. Because with Facebook and social media, it's all about answering the questions and putting out strong content that's adding value to your target audience. With Google, it's trying to reverse engineer and put yourself in the shoes of your target customer and think, what questions are they, or what are they Googling before they might find themselves in a class in one of your competitors' classes. And you can run those ads against your competitors. So like, I might look at running ads against core power yoga searches or something, because I know that's just a brand that pops to my mind. But run those ads and you want to use keywords. Don't just use the keyword yin yoga. Use the keyword yin yoga class in the neighborhood that your class is in. Or so like, think about what you want to think of is, what are they searching on Google that in the days and weeks before they go try your class or your competitor's class for the first time. But that's where I'd go with that, is go to Google Ads for finding something local. That's going to be your best bet if you're looking to investing into advertising. And then the other thing on that, as far as your question on spending wisely for growth in the early stages. So what you're doing on the networking, getting out there, connecting with event planners, organizations, etc. When you're just starting out, you have more time than money. As you grow and start to fill your classes up and your time squeezed in managing the business, you're going to end up having more money than time. So right now in the early stages, I think it's important that you max out those time pieces as much as you possibly can, but do it in a targeted way. Don't go network with everybody just because it's a networking group. Make sure that the event planners that you're aligning with, the organizations that you're aligning with, are complementary in some way, that you have crossover with your target audience. I know, like when I was back in California, I was doing a lot of cryotherapy. And so this might be a perfect example for you to think about. And the cryotherapy company that I went to was actually doing yoga events in their cryotherapy store. So they'd bring people in, they'd have a yoga teacher come teach, and then they'd lead a yoga class, and then they'd offer discount specials to try the cryo chamber. So that might be a perfect example, because then they have their audience that you're now siphoning off of, because they're already customers of the cryotherapy store. But now that cryotherapy person might want to go try a yin yoga class. And so then you're there, and then you network, you hand out cards, you say, hey, here's 10% off your first class at my actual studio. So how can you find places? Don't just go to events, but find places where your potential audience cross-pollinates and shows up and spends time. And that's where I'd focus all of your networking efforts. Joe Nugent. How do I figure out how much I can pay someone for a sales position? That is a salary plus commission. Business description and background. I own a home inspection company. I'm adding an outside business development position and unsure how much I can afford to pay them with a salary plus bonus. Elevator pitch is, I work with people buying a home to inspect it prior to closing to ensure that the home is safe and all systems and components are working properly. I also work with seasonal residents to look after their slice of paradise. Love it. So what you want to look at is how much, are these people doing inside sales or outside sales? And what that is, are you inside sales is you're generating all the leads. They're basically just picking up the phone, taking orders, identifying the needs gap and offering the solution and selling it. Outside sales is they're going out and pounding the pavement and drumming up the leads and closing the deals all themselves. And an inside sales position pays much lower commission than an outside sales position. So what I want to look at first is what's your lead generation system like? So that we make sure, are these people busy or are you paying them to go out and generate leads for you? Because marketing and sales, everyone lumps them together, but they're actually two very distinct skill sets. So I just want to kind of start with that high level distinction. Next, you want to say, what's the minimum number of sales that you need to bring in to be able to afford this person? Because there's a minimum threshold. And I would look at whatever that minimum threshold is of your target growth, make that their minimum goal to maintain their base. And then commissions are gravy above and beyond that. And so what you want to look at is not just the revenue that they're bringing in, but the profit you're making on that. Because what you don't want to do is hire a salesperson and all of your profit growth is going to their salary. Now, that's okay if you have a long lifetime value, meaning, so like, for example, we sign up a tax client, the average lifetime value is they're going to be with us for 8 years, just on average. And so, whereas, something where you're selling a t-shirt, your lifetime value on average is going to be much lower than that. So you need to look at it. There's so many factors here in terms of how much you can afford. If you have a long lifetime and high lifetime value of a client, then you can afford to break even in the first year, right? But you still got to pay yourself and pay the cash flow. And then the other thing, just philosophically, that I would look at. So I'd look at, okay, what's the minimum growth target that you need for this person to sell? And that would be where you'd want their target to be for their base. And then I would look at, on the commission piece of it, have a graduating scale based on if they sell more. So you might have, they've got to hit, let's use an example. If you're paying someone $60,000 as a sales base, as a base plus commission, it might be the first $250,000 of sales just covers their base and they don't get a dime of commission. And then the next 250, so 250 to 500,000, they get a 5% commission on top of their base. And on everything above 500,000, they get a 10% commission. So you're covering your costs in that base on those early sales. And then everything they do above and beyond the goals that you set for them is gravy to you based on what you're paying them in their salary. So you can afford to pay a higher commission because you've already covered your profits. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So that's how I would look at it. High level, are they inside sales, meaning you're generating the leads for them, versus outside sales and they're going and pounding the pavement? So basically fishing or hunting. Are they, and then what's the minimum you need them to grow the business in order to bring them on? And then I'd look at graduating the scale of the percentage of commissions to cover your costs and profitability in the early, up to a certain threshold, and then increase and have bonuses above and beyond. That's kind of how I'd look at it. Jenny Dawson, how do I structure payment for traveling events? Background, I'm a yoga teacher and trainer and sound practitioner and have recently been asked to lead training and events outside of my local area. How do you suggest I structure pricing? Thanks so much. By the way, you are all awesome, and I'm so grateful for your support and guidance. Love it. It looks like, if I'm reading this right, so people are hiring you to travel. So in my experience, what you do with that is you bake it into the quote that you give them and send them a quote that kind of covers that cost, so it's going to be a higher fee. Or you send them the quote for your normal fee, and then you bake in part of your contract is they cover travel costs. And usually if you do it that way, I wouldn't just travel for free. I mean, if you're really trying to prove a concept and get it out there, which I know you're early in your business. So if I'm early in my business and just getting started and I want to go out and basically acquire proof of concept and get good testimonials and feedback, then I might pay for the travel myself. If you've got enough business locally and this is just additional revenue, then I would make them pay for your travel expenses. And I would break that out separately so that they know that they're paying for your travel separate from your service, which is teaching yoga. But if you're really trying to get out there, get word of mouth out there, and you can afford it, I would look at in those early times, just go and do the travel yourself, unless it's a significant expense. If it's driving 100 miles to go to the event, I'd probably just cover it myself and eat it, just because I want to get my strong word of mouth out there. But if it's significantly costing me time and energy, or flights, or it's a significant cost, then I would make the client pay for it. Allison Koyanagi. How do you get leads to call or email you back about scheduling a call to discuss their needs and how you can help them? Background. Digital marketing agency. I've been running some great lead funnels for our business and have been flooded with leads. Unfortunately, I haven't had much success with getting these leads to email or call me back to schedule a complimentary 30-minute consultation to better assess their needs and how we can help. In my email, I leave a calendar link to book a call, and in my calls, I clearly explain that we can schedule a time that better fits their needs. I even text them and leave a voicemail if I'm unable to catch them at a good time. I've only had a few good leads book a call with me, but feel like I'm missing out on all the other leads that have come in recently since I can't get them to book a call with me. They are qualified leads as we qualify them through specific questions through our lead funnels. I research their companies before calling them to make sure they are legit. Thank you for your help and time in advance. So in my mind, you're not building up the pain enough that makes it so they need to get on the phone with you. And so you're a digital marketing agency, so I'm assuming in marketing that you're doing this for your clients. And it's very easy. Sometimes, the cobbler with the holes in their shoes, we don't do it for ourselves. So I would, just from what I'm seeing, if you're getting a bunch of leads come through, that means you've got some messaging that you're doing it right. But you might not be building up enough urgency in terms of why they need to get on the phone with you now. So for example, I know like in my business, it ebbs and flows, and there's times where we're slower and busier, but December is always a time of the year where people want to hop on the phone with us now. And the reason why is because when December 31st hits, we can't do tax planning anymore. So we can't save you the amount if you miss that window, then you lose thousands of dollars. And so there's urgency there. So, and I'm not saying create false urgency, but how can you create urgency to make it so they need to get on the phone with you? The other thing that I would look at is how can you create an irresistible offer that they basically if you have a guarantee that it's going to be worth their time, or you'll give them a $10 Starbucks card or something where if I don't show you how I can get you at least 50 qualified leads by the time we finish up our 30 minutes together, then I'll give you $100. And so you're incentivizing them to get on the phone with you, and you've got to make sure that you can deliver on that promise, and that A, that you can deliver on that promise, and B, that across the board, you got to know your conversion rates, so that if you get on 20 calls, you know that you're going to convert, let's say 2 of them, if they're qualified leads, to clients, and your average client is 10 grand a year. So you're going to get $20,000 from those 20 calls. So you can afford to, on those other 18, you can afford to spend $50 each on a gift card, because you're spending $900 on gift cards to get $20,000 in business, but you increase the incentive and the value of why they want to get on the call. So those are 2 things that I'd maybe consider in terms of either increasing the urgency, building the pain of not getting on the phone with you, or offering them some sort of incentive or guarantee of performance for getting on that call. Carrington Crothers. Question: what are ways or key points when organizing and prepping for the upcoming year? Background, I run a commercial photography business focusing primarily on product photography. Most of my journey, I have just been going with no clear plan or action, winging it, so to speak. Throughout my AO journey this far, I'm getting more organized with a vision, plan, goals, etc. What are key areas to focus on when prepping for the new year to set yourself up to go in strong? This is perfect time of year for this question. So, and this may sound kind of hokey, but what the biggest thing you can do is visualize what you want your life to look like on December 31st of 2022. So one year from now, if 2022 absolutely knocked it out of the park and everything went right, you're on not just your business, but your personal life, health, personal finances, business goals, how you're spending your time, how all of that looks, crushed it at the end of 2022. And then take a cold, hard, honest look at where you are today. And then look at the gap. What skills do you need to develop? What habits do you need to implement? What growth do you need to have in your business? And break all those different components down of where you are today versus where you're going to be on December 31st of 2022, and reverse engineer that into tasks of what you need to do each month, each quarter, each month, and each day. And you get really granular on that. And that starts with knowing exactly where you want to go. And so you got to start by visualizing your outcome of what you want the end of 2022 to look at. And that's something that's on my goals over the next probably 2-3 weeks here that I'm going to really, that's on my to-do list, is to really get clear on 2022. So you get clear on 2022, what you want the end of the year to look like, and then reverse engineer that back into each quarter, and then into each month, and then into each week and each day. That's how I would approach it. Kimberly Vincent, how can I reach more prospects in a quicker time frame? Serene Workforce offers virtual care, information webinars, and on-site massage therapy for large companies in Canada. We solve problems related to employee stress and pain management for increased productivity and corporate bottom lines. I am the company at this point and want your opinion on how I can ramp up sales faster. What would you do in order to reach more prospects faster? So if you're all virtual, I'd go all in, find someone who's really, if you have it on your team, or if you don't, find an agency or find someone who's really good at Facebook and Instagram ads, and go all in on that. So I just booked a doctor's appointment from an Instagram ad last week. So it works. And it was in the stories. So I'm new to the Florida area and been looking for a good doctor, and then got an Instagram ad targeted, looked up the reviews, and that's how it works. So I would go all in on Facebook and Instagram ads. That's what I would do. Roselli, a cloak, or I hope I got that right. Question: what factors should I consider when creating an exit strategy for my business? Background: I would like to structure my business to operate without me so that I have the option to sell it. So what you need to do for that is really audit your day and audit your week and find out exactly where you're spending all of your time in your business, not on your business. So there's the time that you're working on your business, which is great that you're looking at this, because a business that can run without you is worth a lot more than a business that needs you. So kudos for thinking through this process. I will say something just to be mindful of as we're talking through this. So I would say there's a lot of entrepreneurs who try to work themselves out of the business too soon, and they don't put the foundation in place first, and it weakens the company. So I'd be cautious of that. Work with an intention of working yourself out of the business, but be cognizant of not doing it too soon so that you don't water down and you're not doing what's basically called delegating delegation by abdication, meaning you're just hoping that the business will run the way you want it to, and you're just seeing yourself out of the business. So be careful of that. But assuming you're not doing that, what you want to do is look at what are the activities that you're doing in your business and start creating the personas and the skill sets of the people that you need to replace that. And it probably is going to be 3 or 4 different people, especially as your business grows. Because when you're small, you have the capacity to sit in 3 or 4 or 5 or 12 different seats. So that's going to be different roles as your business grows, and you have different department heads. So you go from basically early in the business, you're doing all the things in the different departments, and then you go to where you're leading all the different things in the different departments, and then you go to instilling leaders in each of those departments, and you're just steering the company. And then you go from putting someone who is steering the company, and you're simply sitting on the board of directors. And that's the spot where you're looking to get to. And that's the evolution of the cycle that you need to get to. So that's why I would start making those job descriptions of the different roles that are critical that only you can do right now, that it feels like only you can do, and start visualizing that replacement and what that persona of that person looks like. Roselia Cloak, what is the best way to introduce policy changes and retainer increase to clients? In my accounting firm, I have been very flexible and have helped clients apply for loans and grants at no additional cost to them, going above and beyond for clients, and would like to get compensated accordingly. I want to implement these changes without too much backlash. So I can tell you this from multiple times of experience, because I run an accounting firm and I've raised my prices and charged for things we were giving away for free previously. And when you do it, in my experience, as long as you're actually giving good service and giving good value, which I'm sure you are, you get very little backlash. Most of the time, it's your own mental limitation that you're putting on yourself, and you're having the conversations in your head that you think the client's going to have with you. I've seen this at an old firm back when I was an employee. My old boss didn't raise his prices soon enough. Literally, clients were giving him extra money because they knew that he was worth more than he was charging. So raise your prices. You might get a handful of people that complain. You might get a handful of people that leave. But if you double your prices and 50% of the people leave, you're making the same amount of money and doing half the work. And that's a beautiful thing. So just get the confidence up. It's not going to make near as many waves as you think it's going to be, as you think it is. And if some people leave, that's okay. So, as far as how to approach it, if you just basically send out this is a great time of year to do it because you're renewing annual kind of re-ups. And I would just explain exactly what you explained in this background question, meaning I'm adding more value. And if you can think about ways that you are actually adding more value compared to the service they signed up for, so you're not just raising fees, you say, good news, we're beefing up our services and your fees are going up accordingly. And then that's how you do it. And you just send out a letter and send out the updated fee. And in my experience, you don't get near as much backlash as you might think. It's all in your head. Alex Luchinsky. Question: what is the best approach to a very important client meeting where you only get one opportunity? Background: a question. Hello, mentors. I'm creating a SaaS business where our platform will help influencers and public people manage their digital assets in a way to help them with digital rights management and takedowns of pirated material. We help them store assets and manage the assets. I have a big meeting with a potential distributor and promoter of our platform to their customers. OnlyFans is the potential partner. When going into these meetings, what are strategies to build the relationship and secure them as a partner? Thanks. So, what I would look at is when the reason that most people get nervous in times like this. And this is true. Like when we have people, whenever our accountants go to do sales calls for the first time, where they're doing consultations, they get nervous because they think it's all about them. If you flip the switch and understand that if you just go in there with the mentality of I'm going to serve and add value and show, just totally focus on the value that they're going to get out of the relationship, and how can you serve and how can you work together, and ask them questions and just go at it with a servant's heart, and how can you add the most value in your conversation, then the spotlight changes from being on you to it's on them. And you're thinking of it's not a what can I get out of this? It's what can I give to this relationship. And I know that's difficult because you're in a situation, from what I'm reading, where there's a lot riding on this. And I forget who I heard tell the story, but they were talking about the pitcher in the World Series. Any pitcher in the World Series isn't focused on the lights, isn't focused on the weight of the moment, isn't focused on the crowd and everything. They're laser focused on the catcher and the signal that the catcher's giving, and just making that one pitch. Because if they thought about all those other things, they'd freak out and they wouldn't be able to function. So don't think about all that's on the line of being the potential partner of OnlyFans. Think about that one pitch. So you're going in, and that one pitch is that value add. Know your value. Know that you're meant to be here for this. And just go in there and laser focus, just like you're talking with me or whoever else, and you're just having a conversation and adding value to the conversation. And so don't think about the outcome. Don't get in your head about what this might lead to. Just go in there like it's just any old business meeting, and you're just having a conversation. And just know your value. That's just go and just think about your value and just go crush it. Andy Ramos. Question: how do I best approach talking to a manager in my company about their need to practice healthier communication whenever they communicate with their employees? Background: I'm corporate support for a company called Natural Life. We offer a wide variety of wellness items and consider ourselves a wellness center. In fact, core value number 6 for us is wellness. We promise to use quality products and friendly service to promote a better quality of life for all. This sentence says for all. And I firmly believe that this friendly service should always be exercised from our employees to our customers, but also between managers and their employees as well. It is beneficial for us all to offer a healthy work environment, as an unhealthy one always creates a slew of problems, and we believe a big key to that is healthy communication. I want to talk with one of my managers because I want to keep them on board, but I have heard more than once that this person can really come off wrong when communicating with their employees. This kind of stuff slowly but surely creates a tense work environment, which indirectly will affect sales, as we have seen before. I want to make sure I don't come off wrong first and start a bad chain reaction, since we really want to keep this employee. How should I best approach them? Should I just fire them? Help. So first off, don't fire them. And actually, your answer is in the background that you gave me. And that is the fact that you brought up your core value number 6. So this is an amazing opportunity to make your core values come alive in your business. So I'd sit down and have a talk with the manager, and if you have your core values handy, that would be amazing. And I would say, point to that core value and make them read it out loud, that core value number 6. And say, what does that mean to you? And then they'd probably say, well, it means we want to treat everyone better, blah, 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 blah. And they'll tell you what it means to them. And if they totally miss the mark, then you've got a different conversation. But if they interpret the core value correctly, then that gives you an opportunity to say, you're absolutely correct. By the way, from my experience and from some feedback we received, you are not currently living up to the standard that we hold of that core value. And then give them a couple concrete examples, because if you're going to give them coaching in a direction, you need to give them concrete examples of how they need to get better. And then have a conversation about concrete examples of where they didn't. So read the core value, have them define the core value. So you can write this down, have them define the core value, explain how they're not living up to the standard with concrete examples, explain what the standard looks like, and then ask them if they can commit to living that standard. And then see what happens over the next month. And then if it improves, awesome. And then that's a great opportunity that you've drilled in the importance of those, that you're actually living those core values and they're not just words on the wall. If it doesn't get better, then I'd go back and then you need something in writing. You need a written contract, a core value contract. They're not going to, that we need to write that within 30 days, you're going to improve and live the standard that we discussed last time we met. Then at that point, if they still don't improve once you've got that written core value contract in place, then that's when you let them go. But those are the steps that I would take. And it's a great opportunity to instill the core value. And I wouldn't be surprised if they simply don't know how they're coming across. All right, Kurt Nasapak. Question. What's the best way to determine the best opportunity out of a selection of seemingly good options? Ooh, big question. Background. I came to AO to begin working on building out different systems and processes to take my current branding and design business from being a contractor and take on the role of creative director working with a team, as we discussed in our call. However, as I've been going through the Authority Expert course, I've started questioning if that is what I really want to do long term. I initially got the entrepreneurial itch a little over 10 years ago when I started a clothing company. This idea behind this company was that I would use it as a motivational, inspirational platform, primarily based on my journey of dealing with and overcoming challenges with mental health. The brand ultimately didn't progress because I hit a point where I became so afraid of sharing my story and so afraid of being judged that I got stuck in the paralysis by analysis phase and never progressed. All that being said, I'm at a point in my life now where I've overcome those fears, and when I look at what I've written so far in my Authority Expert template, my strongest experiences, greatest strengths, and skills that I've developed can all be directly tied to what I've learned in dealing with mental health issues. I guess I'm at a bit of a point where the idea has never left me, but the most immediate opportunities for myself are in the area of brand design and creative direction. I know I want to pursue this brand because of the deeper meaning and personal experience I can speak from, but I also don't want to spread myself thin trying to develop multiple things at the same time. So, it sounds like from what I'm hearing and reading is that you feel like you're at this crossroads where you've got a lot of potential opportunities and you're trying to figure out which one to go down, or do you split the path? And so what I would start by saying is I would say do some really good soul searching and pick one and go all in on that one until you've made it a full success, and then you can diversify. That's what I would say as just high level philosophy. As far as how to pick, I like the triangle, the sort of the triad of what you're good at, what you enjoy, and what there's financial opportunity in. And so I'd take those three things. So like if there's something that you're really, really good at and there's a huge market for it, but you hate it, you can maybe do that for a short period of time, but it's really, really hard to build anything great and worthwhile if you don't love what you're doing, or at least love the outcome and the result and the mission of it. If you are really, really good at something and you love it, but there's no market for it, then that's a problem too. That's what's called a hobby. So what you want to look at is, what are you really good at? And it sounds like you're going down this path of you can help people on the mental health side of things. It sounds like you're passionate about that too. And I know that's a huge topic right now. So I'm sure there's a market for that. I don't know the market in terms of the market research, but I do a little market research and use that lens. For me, that's the lens that I looked at when I was looking at kind of multiple opportunities early in my career. And then once you build a successful platform, then you can diversify and do a lot of different things. But That's the lens with which I would look through how to achieve and what path and opportunity to go down when you've got multiple good options. And if you meet all three criteria on a couple different options, then I'd do an objective 1 to 10 on each of those three criteria, or put a value to, so basically 1 to 10 on market size, 1 to 10 on how much you enjoy it, and 1 to 10 on how good you are at it. And whatever the highest score is, I mean, this is an objective way to do it. You just go for it. And then the other thing I will say about that is your gut is rarely wrong. And if you listen to your gut and it ends up being the wrong direction, you'll have a lot less regret than if you have a gut feeling, like a strong gut feeling, and you ignore it and go down a different path because you feel like you should go down that path. So really, really take some time and sit with what your gut tells you to do too. That's something that I've really learned over the life of being an entrepreneur, and even before that when I was, an employee. Anytime I've had a gut feeling and I've gone against it and I reflect on that a few months or a year later, I was wrong going against it. And my gut was almost always right. So I would not discount what your gut says you should do too. So that's the last of the questions. I think that's a good spot to end. So thank you, everybody. I hope you found that valuable, and we'll see you on the next mentor call.